Okay. So welcome everyone. So here we are, backpacks and stories with my friend Ben, and my name is Santiago. So you probably have seen us in the previous episode, a few episodes ago, when Ben was sort of asking me about my story when I was traveling and my experience. But on this episode, we're gonna do the other way around. I'm gonna be asking Ben some questions about his journey, traveling and discovering himself and the places he's been visiting. So, hi Ben, how are you? How you been?
Hello, Santi. Thank you for coming back to do episode 5 with me today. I'm doing very well here on this Friday evening, Saturday morning for you. And yeah, slowly for me, the summer is leaving now. We're here in the northern hemisphere. We're going back into the cold weather, and you are on the other side of that. Slowly your summer is arriving.
Yes, we are starting the spring here. It's getting prettier and prettier. The weather. It's been a really rainy, wet winter, and slowly it's getting better, nicer. So yeah, happy. It gets into your mood, when you start seeing nicer days.
Yeah, 100%. And it goes the other way too, with the
Mhm.
the winter and the shorter days is difficult, I think, with less sunlight. It can be really difficult.
True, true. So I wanted to, well, just to do a quick recap for everyone that is listening. So we met in Australia in December in Tasmania, to be more specific, doing our farm work thing that you have to do to extend your visa in Australia, typical thing that backpackers do in Australia. So we met in Tasmania 2019 doing this type of work. And then from them, we became friends. We continue in touch. But I would say, actually, after that summer, we stay in Australia different ways. But eventually, later on that year, you left Australia, yes?
No, that year, no. I left in
2021, the
20,
next year,
I left in July 2022,
July 2022. I remember that we met in Queensland, 2020.
the end of 2020, yeah.
Yes,
In New
and in Nusa, yeah. And then so 2021, you left Australia. Mm.
2022.
2022, Jesus, 2022, July 2022, you left Australia. So where did you go?
So it had been nearly 3 years in Australia. Obviously, spent the whole pandemic there. And come July time, I didn't have to go back, but I decided to go back to Europe, to the UK, to see as you can imagine, a lot happened during the pandemic for my family. And
Mm.
I mean, for everyone, but in my family, my grandma passed away in the time I was there, and my sister had a baby. So it was saying a goodbye and a hello. And I came back in July to surprise my nan for her birthday. So I surprised the whole family pretty much. Only my mom and my sister and my dad knew that I was gonna be coming, so it was a surprise for everyone. In that time, I I made a couple of stops in Europe. I stopped in Singapore for a few days, then in Athens on the way back to the UK. Then spent a few weeks with my family, another month in Europe, catching up with friends, festivals. And then I went back to the UK and stayed for another 4 months after that. A really difficult 4 months for me because everything was just it was very much the same as when I left, and that
Mhm.
was at the point that I was at, having spent all that time away from the UK. knowing that it wasn't going to be the place for me to live. I've known for a long time that I never felt comfortable there. To
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
really say, okay, well, I'm here for a little while. I'm here gonna make the most of my time with my family
mm-hmm.
for the next adventure.
Take me to the place where you were before deciding to go to Australia. So back in UK, so you were 18 when you decided to go to Australia, or 19 already?
I I think when I decided I was 18, uh,
Mm-hmm,
after my last exams, I went traveling for 2 months around Europe, and
mm-hmm,
along that route, I met so many people who had been to Australia, done the whole work and holiday thing. Told me, it's so easy. You can make so much money so quickly, and you can go and travel after. So I said, okay, it's a great idea.
uh-huh.
I think the first time I ever really knew something about it was from the In-Betweeners movie. I don't know if you've seen
In betweeners, no, I think no.
it. So in the second In-Betweeners movie, you've seen the In-Betweeners or no?
I don't think so.
I
It
think that's
sounds, it rings a bell, but
it's
I don't remember it.
it's a British comedy that I think you would really appreciate because of the.
Okay,
I know you
okay,
obviously spend some time with British culture, so you would understand it.
okay.
Um, but there's one of the characters who goes to Australia, and then he tells his friends all these things, this life that he was living, which was all a lie. When they get there, they realize that it was a lie that he constructed, and they go on an adventure. And it was not representative of any Australian experience. I mean, the Australian experience for everyone is different. Everyone has a different time when they're out there down under. Everyone has a
Mm-hmm.
different experience for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But it was after these couple of months in Europe that I said, okay, I'm gonna go back and work my job for 2 months. 2 months was my plan. I wanted to be in the UK and leave in October when I was still 18. Obviously, that didn't happen, and I became a supervisor at my old job in the call center, uh, a ten-pin bowling call center, and I ended up staying working there until August. And that whole time, it wasn't a good moment for me, having seen a little bit of Europe really made me want to discover more of the world and to see what was out there, to meet more people, to learn, go and do things, try different jobs. And I didn't know what to expect before I got to Australia. When I left the
Mm-hmm.
UK, I I couldn't even bring myself to really clear my room. On the last night I was there, I started packing my bag at 2 a.m. and I just threw some things into my bag. I'd paid for extra luggage and the bag came to 7 kilos. Imagine you're leaving your home country, your home, with 7 kilos worth of stuff. I put in a few t-shirts, a few pairs of underwear, and I guess that was it. Like I had nothing, no plan. I didn't have my visa for Australia. I just had my passport, a little bit of money, and my first few flights to get me to Asia, and then that was it. I was going from there.
Wow. Oh, so there was no, okay, okay. So it was more of an impulse to get to Australia rather than a planification to say like, okay, so I'm gonna be doing this, doing that. This is gonna be my first stop, and then the second one. You just felt the impulse to. You got a bit of you get to know a bit of Europe, and then based on meeting people around there, talking about Australia, you just took the impulse and you went for it.
Yeah, something like that. I just knew that I needed a change. I I had originally wanted to go to South America. South America had been, something that I don't know what attracted me to it for all that time ago. I remember I
Mm-hmm.
used to just Google images of places in South America and want to go. So I said, okay, my plan at that time was I wanted to go to Australia for 1 year and then to go to South America and travel for 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, a couple of months in, that changed very quickly. When
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
hit, I said, okay, I know this isn't going to be possible anymore.
So you're with your 3 years in Australia. Um, what can you tell me about that experience? Because yeah, maybe I don't know. Was there many expectations on Australia, or you just you got these good recommendations and you were like, okay, yeah, let's go, let's get there, but then you stay, but then you stay 3 years, which is not not a short period of time.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll unpack that a little bit. And I really like to think that I didn't arrive with many expectations to Australia. I had heard that it was a land of opportunities. I knew a little bit about the history, but not so much. It was very much, we'll see what happens. I knew I had some contacts out there, old family friends who've been there now for, I believe, about 15 years. And I had a friend out there from my school.
Mm-hmm.
She'd arrived earlier that year, and
Okay.
so I met some people. And when I was moving towards Australia, into Asia, when I was in Bali and Malaysia, I started to meet people, as you did at that time, and now again, you meet lots of people in Southeast Asia who have been living and working in Australia or going to Australia. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I started to hear about some of their experiences and their thoughts and opportunities, and I took some contacts, and then everything. But it really doesn't prepare you, because
Mm-hmm.
you arrive to Australia and you realize that everyone has a different experience. It all depends on the energy that you get, that you surround yourself with. You can really become something in Australia if you want to. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I did. I feel like I accomplished a lot of those things. I feel like I became a new person and learned a lot about myself. So it was an amazing experience, those 3 years, and I would never change how I did one single thing. There are still places that I would like to go, for sure, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a country that's just in the corner of the world, and one
Yeah.
doesn't know when they're gonna go back.
And also basing on your age, when you were there, you were basically in the transition, leaving the teenager years and becoming a young adult,
Hmm.
basically. Because if we compare our cases, when I went to Australia, I was already 27, I think. I was
Hmm.
20 27 or 28, and literally 10 years older than you. So you finish high school,
Hmm.
and then a little bit later you were in Australia, and you stay there your first three, way to say it, your first 3 years becoming a man, finishing the teenager stage, and then jumping into the 20s, and being more independent and everything.
Yeah.
um that's that must have been a really intense and vivid combination, the experience, because it's a personal stage. When you're transitioning, usually most of the people, they do it at home. They
Hmm.
stop with high school, they start getting the first job, or like things like that. Some people move out from their parents, things like that, transitioning into the adult life. But for you, you went to this far away country, and then you stay there these 3 years, traveling, getting all these contacts that you knew, all the people that you knew from before, but then everyone new that you met through the way.
Yeah, 100%. And I think during a lot of that time, I wasn't thinking about those things.
Mm-hmm.
I really had a lot of pressure on myself to be the person I expected myself to be. And what you say is so correct. I was still a teenager, coming towards the end of my teenage years. But yeah, it was my second year out of school. And yeah, you can say once after you finish high school, secondary school, that's the time, that is really when your freedom comes. You're no longer obligated to go to school to study, to work. Obviously, I think that we should be contributing in some way to ourselves, to the people we're living with, etc. But
Mm-hmm.
in comparison to how I lived the first year that I had, that I was free from school, free from, where I got to choose my responsibilities. Well, in that year, I stayed at home living with my mom. A lot of things were still done for me. She still used to cook me meals and do my laundry and things like that. So I was really still in so much of a bubble that I had no idea.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
I
yeah.
went to Australia, and then okay, this is my first time living in hostels, living with other people. And as I don't know if you remember, but I know it was definitely really challenging for me at that time to because definitely in our situation where we were living, it was mostly people late 20s, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a few people my age or early 20s, but we were the minority. It was mostly an older group. So
Mm-hmm.
I think you guys had a lot of patience for us because you knew that we were still learning. But yeah, then it happened. You just have to be so conscious of your surroundings, who you're with, how you respect others, how you respect the mutual space. And sharing a room, is it something that I never had to do on a long-term basis? And you have to learn how to adapt to live with people.
Mm-hmm. 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 And the economy, right? You get your income, and then you have to, buy your food and this and that. You know, there's no pocket money that you can go and like I don't know, ask your mom or your uncle or anyone, like and then the jobs that you do over there so physical, specifically where we were, like
Yeah.
going to these farm jobs, put your body into it. um a really explicit change compared to the life in the city, where
Mm,
you usually, when you get a job or your first job, if you are through those years, usually you go to a call center or office or something. You're never gonna, like, living in England or living in Argentina, my case. You're never gonna go into the farms to work,
no.
to do this hard job. And then suddenly you're doing that, in Tasmania, and your economy is based on this, is such a random thing.
It's very random. And I think those first few months, I learned very quickly about, the farm it was such an interesting experience because the farm work itself, I think that we were definitely mistreated and underpaid in my
Oh yeah,
personal.
we were.
And even when we tried to do things about that, like I don't know if you remember when Matt called they called the guy from the Australia, like one of the newspapers or something, or a
The
union.
union.
Yeah, and he was saying like, okay, well we can. Yeah, he said that we'll put it to the newspapers. We'll make a case about this, blah blah blah. But you guys will have to pay your union fees or something, and then we'll do this, blah blah blah. And it's like they make it so it's very hard as an immigrant worker, because they know that we need to do the work to extend our visas, which is the situation like we talked about before. Uh,
Hmm. Hmm.
so these people need to be there. They need to be working in these jobs. When you spend more time in Australia, you realize you can do other things. You don't have to do these farm jobs. But at the same time, the people that we were with a really amazing group of people,
Yeah,
relatively drama free, and it just you're there all day picking. And I remember that there were days that we spent picking together the whole day, just picking these rows of trees, and you're just talking all day or listening to music. You're outside. There are some really amazing parts of that experience,
definitely.
especially
Yeah,
um, and it is a physical job, and that was a really good change for me from working inside in an office 40 hours a week to being outside talking with people about life, and it was so beautiful. I remember, and I still think to this day, that in Tasmania we had the most beautiful drive to work that I've ever had. Even if some days we were driving 45 minutes in the morning, we were waking up at 5:30, 6 a.m. to go to this farm to work for the biggest farm in Tasmania who were underpaying us. But still, we were there together, laughing and joking and picking and outside in the beautiful summer. Like it was really bittersweet. Really, really
yeah,
bittersweet.
yeah, yeah. Definitely, definitely. That was I would say that that's as a recommendation to anyone that is listening, as a big big change in your life experience, doing coming from any city, a big city, small city, going into Australia, specifically in Tasmania, to spend a summer and do some farm work. It's definitely a life changing experience. Would you agree?
Yeah, million times over. And I think even if it doesn't matter how old you are, whether it's someone
Exactly.
who's just finished school at 18, or if it's someone who's right on the end of their visa, like they're turning 35, this is the first time in their life they're traveling.
If you think about the age of the workers doing this job, that is, I didn't think of that actually. Because look, so you were 19 doing
Yeah.
this job as a backpacker. I was 27 doing this job as a backpacker. There were backpackers that they were, 33, 34, 35.
Hmm.
And then there were locals doing this job being more than 40. So
James.
all these different ages, all together working literally in the same place from 19 to 45.
Yeah.
That
No,
is something.
55. No, there were the guy that the James that I'm thinking of. The guy who was he told me he hadn't left Tasmania in at that time it was like 19 years. He hadn't been to mainland Australia. This guy had left home
19
when he
years.
was 14, 15, and he just left home and at that age and just started moving around and working on the go. And he hadn't even left that tiny island underneath Australia, Tasmania, for 19 years. He'd never left Australia, you know?
Wow.
And this guy just spends the year traveling around Tasmania, working the farms, working the seasons,
Yeah.
you know?
And then yeah, amazing, amazing. So then you went through the whole Australia experience. You travel around, you continue your journey until you got to the point that you decided 2022 July, you decided to leave.
Yeah.
So what was the next step in your head?
This is, I mean, there are lots of moving parts to that story, and I'm sure with time I will share more of this story. But I think coming to the end of 2021, I had started to give it some thought. With my sister gave birth in November 2021 to my niece, and I
Uh-huh.
was really excited to meet her, obviously,
Hmm.
as one is going to be when a new member of their family is born. So from that point, I started thinking, okay, at that point, around the time of her birth, I'd saved around maybe $8,000, and I thought, okay, well, I need to save more. I'm not comfortable leaving Australia with this much. One thing led to another, and 2 months later, I was back to zero. I was back to square one. I'd gone from all the way up North Queensland, flown from Cairns to Adelaide, started a job on the in the grain farm. I stayed there for 2 weeks and then went back to Adelaide, went to Perth, was in Perth for 6 weeks, in quarantine for 2 of them. And then I started making my way back east because I had a job on a solar farm. So I had this job confirmed, and I drove from Perth to Adelaide it was like 3 or 4 days or something, really fast. And everything the plan that I had went wrong. As soon as I crossed the border from Perth into from WA into South Australia, the guy called me and he said, sorry, the job's been cancelled,
Oof.
and I couldn't go back. I couldn't turn back and go back to WA. And this little part of Australia, is called the Nullarbor, and it's a very long, empty road that takes you from South Australia to WA. So, okay, well, I have to keep moving. I went back to Adelaide, starting from zero. Started working in construction, earning really well, and then falling into a bad routine. Then I found myself in a relationship, and we went to Melbourne. When I was in Melbourne, I got COVID for the first time, so they took us to isolation. In this isolation, my friend called me and he said, bro, I just got called from the recruiter from the job that had been cancelled on the solar farm. And he was already in a solar farm in Queensland, so he didn't really care. So I call the recruiter. I say, Simon, like, are you looking for someone? Say, yeah, I was about to call you. I said, okay, well, I'm on it. You give me the job, I'm there. So he said, okay, I'll do it. And then I was with my ex-girlfriend. We went there together. And I stayed there for 2.5 months. Amazing job, money-wise, earning $50 an hour, working 6 hours a day, but being paid for 8. So I was earning $400 a day. These are like the real, the dream jobs that you get in Australia. And after all of those years of working the shit jobs, being treated questionably, paid questionably, all that time, eventually you get a good opportunity. So I was there. I worked hard for the 2.5 months of work that we had. Then I went back to Adelaide and worked for another couple of weeks in a construction job. And then I flew back from Melbourne in the end of July 2022.
But like, so when did you decide, okay, so Australia's finished, what's next?
Well, I think so. This is there's, like I say, there's a lot more to the story, but I had originally planned to go back to Australia. I was gonna go back with my ex-girlfriend, and we were gonna continue around November time. So the plan was that I went to Europe for 3 months.
Go to Europe and then go back to Australia, yeah. But something happened?
Yeah. So in Europe, I like I said before, I met up with lots of friends. Obviously it was very complicated to maintain something at distance, and we split. So I said, okay, well, I'm not going back to Australia. At that time, I had the opportunity to go back with the visas that we were being offered by the government, but I had to go back to Australia to get them approved. So I said, I'm not going to do that. And I spent so much time with my friends from Chile and Argentina, in Europe, and I said, okay, well, it was my plan before. It was my plan to spend 1 year in Australia and then go and travel in South America. Now all of this time has passed. I don't have a plan. I'm coming to South America, and I'd always wanted to go to Brazil for my birthday for Carnival, in Rio. That was always a dream. And my friend was going back to Chile, and then my other friends were going back to Argentina. So it was everything like, okay, now I have an exciting plan. Now I'm really gonna go and do what I'd planned to do for a long time. The next few months in the UK, I worked hard, very hard, like working every day of the week, and I saved some money. And yeah, in the January, 4th of January, 2023, I spent 1 week in Europe first, a couple of days in Paris. That was my first time in France, first time in Paris. Amsterdam for a couple of days, and then Barcelona for a few days. And then from there, from Barcelona, I flew to Santiago de Chile.
Okay, so all right. So I got the recap now. Yes. So you left Australia thinking that you were going back to Australia in a couple of months,
Mhm.
but then suddenly that plane ended up changing,
Yeah.
and then you work hard in England for a couple of months,
Mhm.
make some savings. You travel a bit around Europe, a little bit more, because you did that before going to Australia. You did that at different places. Yes,
Yeah,
the first time you traveled around Europe.
the first time I traveled around Europe, I was traveling with a friend, and we mostly just went to big cities. I think the
Mhm.
most off the path places we went to Serbia, and that was really cool.
Okay.
But yeah, like mostly just the capital cities or big
Uh-huh.
cities.
And then once again, yes. Okay. So then once again, you travel around Europe, different places, France and Spain, Paris and Barcelona,
Mhm.
and then the next chapter was South America.
Yeah,
That must have been exciting, yeah.
yeah,
Coming from the idea of saying, okay, so I'm gonna be, eventually I'm gonna be back in Australia, just what I already know,
mhm.
make some money or whatever, and this, and then suddenly all these changes, and then facing this new adventure, saying like, okay, so now actually I'm going to South America, this place that I've been willing to go for some few years.
Yeah,
Now it's actually happening, and you had your savings. You've been working in England, plus the solar farm in Australia.
yeah.
So the next chapter arrived, South America. And actually, I remember that was February 2023. Was it February 2023 when we met in Buenos Aires?
We met in Buenos Aires in February 2023,
Yes.
and at
So
that
that
point, we
was,
had seen each other for more than 2 years.
yeah, second time. I mean, yeah, second time we met after a couple of times in Australia.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. The first time, yes, you came to my place, and that was actually that was a great timing, the best actually, because so to everyone understand, I was visiting Argentina, I was visiting Buenos Aires. So basically that was the end of my visit when Ben went to Buenos Aires. So I was actually saying goodbye, yeah, saying goodbye to all my family. So when he came, uh we went together, just saying goodbye to all my family. So within 1 day, he met all my grandparents, my both parents, which my dad was actually living in Spain, but at that time he was in Buenos Aires. I don't know how many uncles you met at that time. So all this family, really big Argentinian, Italian, typical family, within 1 day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that was
Proper timing.
it was perfect because I think I arrived on the 6th at like 1 a.m. or something like that. and then I saw
Mm-hmm.
you on the 7th, and you were flying on the 8th. I think it was those dates. So I went
Mm-hmm.
to your house at maybe 10 p.m. and we drank some wine, and stayed talking, playing. I think we played a game of chess until
When
4.
you mentioned, I remember that night talking about life and this long talk. I remember you mentioning this podcast, the idea of the podcast.
Yeah, yeah. And I think at that point I was really starting to, because I'd mentioned it for a long time. I've had this idea for many, many years. Even before I left to Australia, I knew I wanted to start this at some point, this project.
Mm-hmm.
But by that time, I think I was really starting to build my confidence again, after starting these travels. And yeah, so I'm gonna rewind a bit, and then I'll get
Mm-hmm.
back to. I'll try and go in chronological order. So
Mm-hmm.
you were asking me about how it felt to be embracing this new adventure, this journey that I just decided, okay, I'm not going back to Australia now. How do I feel about completing this dream that I've always had?
Mm-hmm.
So going from Spain, and I had been practicing my Spanish a little bit, just trying to feel prepared to go, because this was also another big objective that I had. Going to South America, I really wanted to spend my time learning Spanish, because why not? If I'm going to be there, I want to meet people, I want to connect with people, and you need to speak the language to really connect with those things. So I'd been practicing, and then I get on the flight, and there's this Chilean man who I'm sitting next to, and he was trying to ask me something I didn't understand. The girl on the behind me, she spoke English, she translated. Well, he wanted to ask you if you can swap with his wife, if that's okay with you, and because obviously it was a 14-hour flight and they wanted to be together. So I said, yeah, no problem. I didn't care. Why would I care? If someone can be comfortable, I had a normal seat. I didn't pay for my seat. I don't care, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I say, okay, yeah, sure. And then she tells me her seat was like 4F. I say, 4 is sounds very close to the front of the plane. So I'm walking, and I get to the front, and I had extra leg room, but this was like, I don't know, like 1 meter of leg room in front of me. This is a luxury that I would never thought I was gonna have, and that was amazing. That just by saying yes in that situation, I get thrown into like, okay, this is gonna be more comfortable this flight.
Nice. Instant karma.
Yeah, yeah, it was really, really good. So next to me on the plane, there was a family, a young boy and his parents. Um, and I asked the guy if he spoke English. He said, "Yeah, I speak some English." He was Catalan, and his wife was Chilena, but they were on holidays in Spain, in Barcelona, but they live in Chile. So then I was trying to practice a little bit on the flight with him, and it was like, okay, this is starting now. I really have to try.
Mm-hmm.
Then it was a bit. The flight was obviously very long, 14 hours. I'd never been on a flight that long, because all of the flights that I'd done going to Australia, coming back from Australia, they were all broken up, and the longest that I'd done was maybe 12 hours. So this was 14 hours, and I was going, and then I was going to be arriving at 9 or 10 p.m. in Chile. So I remember when we were getting close, maybe 2 hours from Santiago, and you start to see Los Andes, and flying
Mm-hmm.
over Los Andes is so beautiful. We were in the middle of summer, and you see these amazing snow-capped mountains, and I just thought, wow, like I'm really here. I've really just crossed the whole ocean, and now I'm finally in the continent that I've wanted to visit for so long.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So something that always amazed me about you going to South America was that when we met in Buenos Aires, uh, it's it's only been 2 months of your experience in South America, right? When we met in Buenos Aires,
1 month.
1 month.
Yeah,
So within 1 month, only within 1 month, you were able to speak with my grandmother in Spanish.
yeah.
How did that happen? How did you get so good at it in such short period of time?
It, when people ask me about my learning experience, I think is I have to take it back because in Australia, I didn't learn a lot of things, but I started to hear it all the time, because in
Hmm.
Australia, if you want to or not, you hear Spanish every day. When you're
Hmm.
living with backpackers, you live around Latinos, you're always going to hear Spanish. So I think that was something that you start to get the ear for it. You start to pick up and understand phrases and expressions. I always ask people like, how can I be polite? How can I be funny? So I'd use some audiobooks to try and learn things of how to say. I was doing my Duolingo every day, still doing my Duolingo now for French.
Uh-huh.
Um, but when I got there, so this is the next part. So I text my friend. He said, "Okay, I'm gonna come pick you up from the airport."
In
And
Chile, yes.
in Chile, in Santiago. And I told him, I'm going to get there late. We can talk for a few hours. Then we're going to go to sleep. And then the next day we start, you introduce me to your family, blah, blah, blah. He said, yeah, no problem. So he picks me up at the airport. We're driving maybe 25, 30 minutes to his house. And then I'm just saying, like, I don't know if this is what I expected. I didn't have any expectations for Santiago de Chile. We pull into his house, and even from outside, I had no idea. I had no
Hmm.
idea. We go inside, and his whole family is there, and they prepared a welcome party for me. I'm like, whoa, what is going on right now? There were 20 people, like, oh, so eager and happy to see me. And I don't know, it was just they showed me so much love straight away. And this was the hard part. No one there spoke English, just my friend. His brother speaks a little bit of English, and his dad. We worked it out. We could communicate, and I was trying to speak, and we were drinking wine that night and beers. And when you're drinking, obviously it's easier to speak. It just opens your flow. You just flow and flow and flow. So the pressure was taken off, and we were all just, it was great. And I knew I was going to be. We went to the beach together, um, like 5 hours from Santiago. So I was going to be spending 1 week with them there. So you imagine being there. None of them know how to speak English or just a little bit. So I had to learn because I wanted to join in the conversation. I wanted to get to know these people. I wanted to enjoy the time with them. So I had to. And then continuing that journey by myself. Um, I don't remember if it was to you that I told this story or to someone else, but I said about the buses when I was catching my first bus by myself. I'd bought my ticket, but the station was so busy and I didn't realize that it had already gone because I couldn't see it and I didn't ask. And I said, well, I'm not going to do this every time. I don't want to lose $50 every time I have to take a bus because I'm not going to ask, where's the
Hmm.
bus? Has it gone? So I say, okay, now I have to practice every day. I have to practice saying what I know, using what I know, listening. And with time, I don't want to speak English. I just want to speak Spanish. I think, as they say, going on dates and stuff, that you have to. If you go on a date with a girl who doesn't speak any English, you have to find a way to communicate, you know.
Exactly, exactly. I think this attitude towards, learning the language so quickly ended up opening the door for you for all the following countries after Chile.
Hmm.
So if we have to mention all the countries that came after Chile, so you went to Argentina,
Yes.
and then after Argentina.
So I started in Chile, went down and crossed to Patagonia. I started in Bariloche, went all the way down to Ushuaia. I went to Buenos Aires. From there, I did the Cataratas de Iguazu, and then I crossed over into Brazil. Spent a few weeks in Brazil. We were a group of 10 for Carnival. So we went to Rio, to Sao Paulo, Buzios, and then back to Rio, back to Chile, back to Argentina. From Argentina, I went to Paraguay, Bolivia, Peru. Then I flew back down to Argentina, back to Chile, then to Canada. Then from Canada to Colombia, Colombia to Chile, Argentina. This was in the second trip.
Mm-hmm.
And then from Argentina back to Colombia, and I stayed in Colombia for 4 months.
Wow, 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 wow. Yeah, definitely. You see, I think this is important to remark how important is to get the language, at least to be able to communicate yourself, because otherwise you couldn't have traveled by yourself, in Chile, in Argentina, Paraguay, Bolivia, Peru, all these Spanish countries. Basically, you wouldn't be able if you just go with English. I was going to ask you just another separate. So what happened in Brazil with the different language, with Portuguese? Were you able to talk just with Spanish and English? Were you able to communicate?
I think this is something that is it's a bit of a shame that I feel like I didn't connect as much with Brazil and the people and the culture because of the language, you know?
I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense.
Yes and no. Because I think yeah, I could get by for sure with Spanish. We say portoñol. Um
Mm-hmm.
and you can get by with it, you know? Portuguese and Spanish are similar enough that you can communicate, but you can't to express yourself and to get to know someone. It's not so easy. So I understood things that were going on, but yeah, to really connect with people and the culture, I didn't feel so much. And I would like to return to Brazil and make more of an effort to speak and learn Portuguese
Mhm.
to connect more.
This is what you would call the language barrier, yeah? What you felt in Brazil.
Yes and no. Well, I think when I think of a language barrier, I think about people who really like don't understand each other at all. You know, like
Hmm.
they don't someone who I don't know speaks someone who only speaks English and Russian, for example. I mean, even or Portuguese or Spanish, but like I think with Portuguese and Spanish, there's enough of a mutual understanding.
Similarities, yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm. Okay. And so what does it happen to you when you look back of your journey and you can actually say, so I traveled around South America twice, not once, but twice, and then in both travelings you ended up with a positive conclusion, with a positive experience. um what does it make you feel, the independence of like saying this? Like I've been around South America 2 times, and both times I basically had a blast.
yeah.
How does it make you feel, like
I
what's your
think
reaction?
it is when you put it like that, it's really like wow. I feel like I'm on the spot because you don't feel. I mean, personally, I don't feel like I'm thinking about those things all the time. And I don't know if that, you know, if for me it was just like wow, I'm here where I want to be. I'm in this beautiful continent. I feel so lucky to be here. And now I look from afar like, wow, I wish I wasn't doing this shit where I am, going to the same job, doing the same thing, trying to build a routine. I wish I could be there again in that moment. I think it's really, I say this, and I know the other side isn't so easy. It's not so easy to just up and go and just decide, okay, I want to live in Colombia now, I want to live in Argentina. I'm not so naive to know that just going to those places doesn't come with its own problems, but it's a very different life. It's a very different life. And I think there, to really see and get to spend time with the people, so happy, so happy with
Mhm.
everything. The people really make the most of the time, you know, spending time together. I think it's such
You
a
know,
big.
something. Sorry to interrupt. That something that comes to my mind. Um, so you were still very young, and you travel first couple of years in Australia, and then two times around South America and a bit of Canada.
Mhm.
So to anyone that is listening, I think that the first thought of all these travelings, they'll be like, okay, so this guy actually has some money to budget all these long travels.
Mm.
How can you describe your budgeting while doing all these trips? I mean, I think that you answered already, being in Australia because you were working there. But how did you manage your economy during all the trips in South America?
I think I could have managed my economy a lot better than I did. I know I still can, and I know I still have a lot to learn in that respect, in that department.
Mhm.
Really, my methodology was just, okay, I know I'm not going to be working for the next few months, so I have to save. I have to save money. I have to work hard now that I have a good job, a good opportunity to work and save. And so for these 3 months, I'm gonna live no life and just work, work, work.
All
So
right, so that happened in England. Yeah, the last 3 months before going to South America, you
every
work hard there.
work, 6, 7 days a week, every week, there,
Mhm.
go to the office or do whatever job, and just there, just show up, because the that's what it's about. It's about showing up for yourself, you know. And I think this time, and I've been fortunate enough to have things planned out that, um I know there's always a way, even if money's getting a bit low. I've always had, some reserve options that, like, for example, when I was coming towards the end of my time in Colombia, I was getting reimbursed for the flights that I had because I went to go and do the program to teach English. So that was money that I'd already spent, but it was money that I was receiving again to go back to Canada.
Mhm.
So I think I I know I can really be so much better with my money. Um,
No, but yeah, of course. But at the same time, it was only by yourself that you managed to travel not once but twice in South America, just based on this is important to remark to everyone that is listening, the importance of the savings and the hard work, because there was no one behind you, like giving you the money when you were traveling, from Chile to Argentina to the next countries. There was no like a parent figure or someone saying like, oh yeah, Ben, there you go, you got 1,000 more, and then let me know next month, and then I'll give you a bit more. It was all by yourself, just managing your savings.
Yeah, I mean, of course, along the way, I've received help from my family. I won't lie about that. Not all the time, not
Not
necessarily.
only, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like I've supported the majority of travels by myself from my savings for sure.
Yeah.
Um, but it's because it's my passion. Like I feel the most myself when I'm out there doing things. Seeing the world, meeting people,
Hmm.
and it's part of the game. It's part of the game. Like nothing comes free. In this world, you have to give something, whether that is whatever that may be. I think that looks, even something that appears free, someone has to pay for it at the end of the day. Nothing
Hmm.
is in itself, in its essence, free. I think we can live more freely. I think we can be resourceful. I do think there are ways to, now I'm contradicting myself a bit. I think there are ways to really go and live a full hippie life. I really admire people who do it, who just go hitchhike around
Hmm.
and work on volunteer sites. They don't pay for their food, their accommodation, and or their travel,
Hmm.
and they just go around living that life. And I think it's beautiful. I would
Hmm.
I would love to let go and do that, but it is
Just to,
really it's really complicated from when we've been born into the world and the culture and the society that we have. Like to really go and do those things, say, okay, I'm gonna disconnect for a while. It's
mhm.
hard to let those go.
Yeah, definitely. Just to add up something that you said about the volunteerings. So in my experience, when I was I think it was my second year in Australia during the pandemic, it was difficult to get jobs and that. So I ended up doing, I think in total I did 6 months of several volunteerings.
Mhm.
So with those volunteers, I ended up paying my food and rent. And during those 6 months, I think I only pay for transportation from one place to another. And yeah, as a low budget, um yeah, yeah, way of traveling, volunteering, it's something to always take into consideration. You know what? Even if you do it for a couple of months, like, don't take it as a way of traveling, for the long term.
Mm.
If you give it a couple of months, any country, regardless the country, I think is a great experience. The volunteering, that's an area that is definitely super interesting. Besides the low budgeting, of course, the experience, it's a great option as well.
Yeah, 100%. a hundred
Hmm.
percent. I feel like I would like to do more in the future. I would like to give it a go in some more places and try and live that life a bit more, just living off the land, just being more open spaces. I think it would be a
Hmm.
really beautiful experience.
Definitely, definitely. There was something else I wanted to ask you. So, going through your travelings and the experience in South America, we've been through, the economic part, the all these transition into becoming more independent and self-sufficient. All this super interesting, but I want to touch something, the friendships as a concept. So you coming from UK,
Yeah.
so you went now, you living in South America now, traveling, but this is like it's actually a long run. You weren't like just like saying 1 month in one city and then going back to something like that. You were actually like experiencing the place in the long run. You stay there for what was it total, about a year, roughly a year the first time.
The first time was 7 months.
7 months, so that's a long time. So what happened to you coming from Europe? So you got the language to to get to know people. So how did you experience the friendships along South America? Of course, you knew me before, you knew people from Chile as well, so you got friends before coming to South America. But what happened to you, like getting to know like new friendships?
It's a really good question. I think I've been thinking a lot about this, and the things that I want to say about that. I feel like I definitely met a lot of people through my friends of friends. Uh,
Hmm. Hmm.
so meeting my friends and their families or their friends. Like it was a lot of, okay, I know this person, so then I meet this person, I hang out, maybe we go travel together, maybe we go do something, or they call their friend, okay, their friend comes and picks us up. Like it was a lot of that kind of thing. For sure, along the way I met people in hostels as well. um and and yeah, when I spend longer in the place, meeting locals, like staying in Colombia, you know, I was there for 4 months in that town, and none of the none of the gringos there really spoke any English. So it's like, wow, there's someone here who we can speak to, you know.
Uh-huh.
So I think it's been really interesting getting a look into different. Everyone has different experiences, all the different cultures. Even you can see the differences town by town, city by city, how the people really, and I've always felt welcomed everywhere I went.
Yeah.
Like everyone, you know, even between Argentina and Reino Unido, the UK, there's obviously a complicated system.
Mhm.
We have history. The
Yeah, some bad blood in the past.
Yeah, 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 yeah. But despite that, it's crazy. It's crazy how much you can see even British influence in Argentinian culture, and like so many of my Argentinian friends grew up listening to lots of Britpop and British rock and stuff. And like, I think even you told me at some point you think that the humor between Argentinians and Brits is very similar. Like we have a
Very
very
soon.
dark and sarcastic sense of humor in both.
Mhm.
And it's like we're a lot similar. We're a lot more similar than we make ourselves out to be, you know.
That's true.
You
Yeah.
really notice. And I feel like I love Argentina. Everyone who asks me, will know that I say Argentina is my favorite country that I've visited, because I connect so much with the people and the culture and the food. Just it's buena onda. It's good vibes. Like I'm always uh you know very reminiscent of my time spent there, and I'm very excited to go back. Um, so yeah, I know I drifted off a little bit, but it is also hard because when you meet so many people along the way and you want to stay in touch with so many people, it's so difficult to maintain that with.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I would love to stay in touch with everyone. I'm bad enough responding to the friends that I have and stay in regular contact with. That I try and stay in touch with people, but it's difficult and it's complicated when you're not
Mhm.
there spending time with them.
Did you another question? So friendships, yeah, it must have been a beautiful thing to get to know people from other countries and different culture. And then this one is the point that I wanted to touch, the culture. Did you feel or did you sense the culture of uh, all the countries you've been, or maybe more countries than others? The culture of the country um, becoming a part of you?
I like to think so. I like to think that I take something from every place that I've been to. That sounds very British of me to say.
We don't take it literally.
No, but after we spoke, I have my mate
There
here,
you go.
Mendoza. Um, I love mate. Um, I listen to cumbia, salsa, reggaeton. I love arepas. I love empanadas. Like so many things, so many small things from every place that I feel like, damn, yeah, like I really. It's hard. It's hard to say, but I feel like, yeah, I want to bring a little part of everything, every
Yeah.
place I go to with me.
That's such a rich thing to happen to you, like to get all these bits of culture from different places become part of you. All
Mm,
these examples that you just said, because that usually doesn't happen to, if you live in your hometown, or you move to a city, and then you grow up and you stay in this city.
mhm,
Things like this, wouldn't happen to you. You would just grow along with whatever the city you live, whatever the country you live, and then that be, maybe you can like go to, I don't know, like a Chinese restaurant, or like different, Italian restaurant, or whatever it is. But you're not gonna get this bit of a personal transformation.
mm. 100%.
That's yeah.
I think, yeah, it's definitely a little bit of a bug when you start traveling. You have the want, the desire to get to know new places, new people, new cultures, and then it's always the hard part is deciding where to go next. Do you want to go back somewhere you've been before, see old friends or old places, or new friends, new places? It's always you have to make decisions. But yeah,
Hmm.
I think definitely getting out there is so important. And even, I think Europe is a good step. Like Europe is, I'm very fortunate to be surrounded by so many beautiful countries. Apart
Hmm.
from the fact I can't live in them now, thanks to Brexit. But
Hmm.
like I know I'm very lucky to live in a continent so multicultural, so diverse. But then even outside of Europe, you realize, okay, yeah, we're very different. All of us Europeans from our respective countries, but we still do a lot of things the same. We still have lots of similarities in our culture because we've been in close proximity. Of course, those things are going to be similar. But then to go to a completely different continent on the other side of the world and to see, okay, these guys have been doing their own thing for hundreds of years, and to see how it's developed. And again, you do see the similarities, some things that surprise you, culturally, the things that you wouldn't have like I was saying, like I didn't think that British rock would have arrived to Argentina during the times of a military dictatorship, or a little bit after that. I wouldn't expect that people know songs from the Doors, Blur, Oasis. Like it's crazy that a bunch of Argentinians have a better knowledge of old English music than I do. You know.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and then you also see the things. It's like, wow, okay, like, yeah, I wasn't expecting that people are really drinking from like the big bottles of water where they have the dispenser on top, and you take bottled water. People don't drink from the tap so much. It depends where you are, of course, but
Uh-huh.
or like having a gas tank in your house, like a refillable gas tank that you turn on when you want to take a hot shower. You know, there are things like those things. They're normal, of course, they're normal, but I just come from a place where I've never seen those things in a household. It's
Hmm.
really interesting to see those contrasts.
Definitely. And something else I want to touch related to South America is this stigma that maybe people from outside South America uh would feel or would perceive from the it's that the phrase, South America is a dangerous place.
Mhm.
What would you say, you coming from the UK, being all this time in South America by yourself, traveling and discovering all these new places for you, in that regard, to people that haven't been in South America, and for them, like instantly they would say like, no, 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 South America, it's like, phew, super dangerous. I can't go by myself.
Yeah, I think you already have an idea of what I'm about to say here. Uh,
Hmm.
and that, of course, I think is bullshit. Of course, I think so much of the idea that we have or had about South America comes from the media depiction. Is you always see the bad in the news. You never hear the good things. People would have no idea the things that came from South America that changed the world. You think about how many inventors does Argentina have? How many amazing things in the world have been invented by Argentinians? Can you give a couple of examples?
Well, something that is yeah, the pen, the modern pen that we use, that the tip of the pen was invented in Argentina, just
Hmm.
to make an example of how huge the influence was coming from that,
Hmm.
yeah, from that invention in particular.
Obviously, Argentina is a little bit of a different example because it did have a lot of European influence, as have the other countries of varying other points to varying other extents. If we're talking further north, and this is the idea that I had that people had said, um, about how the further north you go is where you start to feel a bit more on edge, a little bit more like this could be dangerous. Yes and no. I think you can see that there are people who want to take advantage. Of course, there are, but you have those people all over the world. You
Hmm.
that happens here in Canada, in the States, in the UK. The UK, if I can, everyone gets stabbed now. They have so many. Crime exists in everywhere, of course.
Hmm.
I think that in South America, because people are very proud about their culture of their respective countries, that they look out for you. That people know what you look like and know that you could be a potential target. So they have kind of a mutual understanding that, okay, we're gonna leave these guys alone because we don't want them to get this bad impression about our country.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because that is the idea that a lot of people have, that a lot of people go to in Colombia for drug tourism or sex tourism, and it is true. There are a lot of predominantly North Americans who go there for those things. Of course, they exist, but that doesn't mean that they represent, even 10% of the country's culture and food and history. There's so much more to those countries. And people want that you see the other side. They don't want you to see this horrible side of the crime and the corruption and the drugs and all of those things. Yes, they exist. Yes, one should be careful. One should keep their eye out. Everyone. The classic example of you don't leave your table, your phone on the table if you're eating outside in South America. It's
Uh-huh.
small things like that. That yeah, you have to think about these things a little bit. Does that mean that every day you have to look over your shoulder and think about where you're going? No, for sure, no. In some places,
Exactly.
yes, but no. In general, no. And if you're thinking about the things, you're nice to people, you treat people with respect, you make an effort learning Spanish, then you're gonna have the time of your life in that continent.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, that is very true, very true. And something else I wanted to touch. So you mentioned, the how different is all these countries in Europe compared to each other. And something that I also think of Europe is how old things are. Like churches and buildings in general. They
Mhm.
could be 500 years or 1,000 years old. And because of the history in South America, with the colonization and all this, most of the places, they're not as old as as places in Europe, but there are places that remain, protected, besides colonization and besides, like modern cities. And the place specifically I'm talking about is Machu Picchu, place that I remember you being there. So this is an old place,
Mhm.
millenary place, I would say, where you actually visit. So what can you tell me about that place? To be in a place, usually they're going again, like Europe, all these old places, but then you go to this place that's been there in South America for hundreds, even thousands of years. I don't even know how old it is.
It's actually not quite that old. I think it's more like 500-600 years old.
600 years old. Wow. Okay.
To be honest, I thought it would. Let me double check because I don't want to get this wildly wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Is I believe it's estimated to be around that, and I had thought that to reveal that Machu Picchu has been occupied from about 1420 to 1530. So it was about 110 years, going back 600 years ago. I also thought it was a lot older. I thought there was something like a couple of thousand years. Uh,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but yeah, no, it was really, it's definitely a magic place being there. It has a special kind of energy to be up there. And I went there with a friend who I hadn't seen in 12 years, 11 years, something like that. It'd been a long time. So we went there together, and just seeing this place, feeling the energy, like wow, these people, the Incas used to just walk through the mountains, they just used to
Mm-hmm.
walk through the mountains through thousands of meters of altitude, and
Yeah,
these
yeah,
uh, they constructed this all over. It's not just this one site.
yeah.
They
Mm-hmm.
constructed things all over the country, all up and down the Andes. They had a really big rain, and
Yeah,
they 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 have a very interesting history, and I would love to learn a lot more about it, going back to those places. Um, but yeah, it was really nice to spend time visiting those sites, not just there, other places around Cusco and other parts of the country, and to learn a little bit about the history, the people who were there first.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's another aspect of South America as well. The history, you know, the Aboriginals and all these empires, the Inca Empire, the Maya Empire. Yeah, yeah. Certainly, that's another topic to pay attention in South America as well.
Yeah,
All
100%.
these like places like Machu Picchu. Machu Picchu, of course, is like the typical place that everyone at least know the name,
Hmm.
but there is many many other places out there um to get to know more about this area.
Hmm.
To have a because, like, for example, if you compare Machu Picchu, would say 600, roughly 600 years, and then you compare Argentina as a country. Argentina has barely just a little bit more than 200 years. the country,
Yeah.
and then you got this place is older than the country itself.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, equally, you think about, especially going to the north of Argentina and going and seeing Salta, Jujuy. Those places are also very, very culturally connected. You know,
Hmm.
seeing over there as well how the natives to the land lived, and they do stay in touch with that traditionalism to a certain extent, for sure.
Hmm. Hmm. Beautiful, beautiful. So I think we can get into bit by bit the end into the episode. I think it was a great conversation. We went through most of your experience and your, I would say, self development while you were traveling and growing along the way.
Hmm.
But before finishing, I want to ask you three things. So the first one, all these places you've been, besides South America, Australia, Canada, even Europe, everywhere you've been, which one would you say, gave you sort of a unique experience or something that you weren't expecting? Maybe it changed you, or maybe, I don't know, maybe it was just a surprise. You weren't expecting it.
Yeah.
Where would you just try to highlight one place in particular?
Okay, so this question is from Tim from last week. Where was my favorite destination and why?
Hmm.
And this is a really it, choosing one place is very, very difficult.
Difficult, yes, of course, yes, yes.
So I think I'm gonna give a couple of answers, but then I'll come to a conclusion of one that I would really choose over, for all the reasons you just said.
Hmm.
I think Amsterdam holds a very special place in my heart because it was the first solo trip I did outside of the UK. Well, not solo, I was with my friends, but without my parents. I flew the day before my 18th birthday and I arrived, and it was like, wow, I have freedom now. I know that we just spent way too much money on a hotel, and we're going to spend the next few days going to coffee shops and walking around the city and going to bars and stuff. But that's what we're going to do, and that's what I'm going to do
Uh-huh.
as a legal adult. So I think Amsterdam is always a special place, and I love that city. I think it's so beautiful and special. I don't think it's number one. I think some places in Australia, I, I definitely Airlie Beach comes to mind with the Whit Sundays. Just that kind of lifestyle, I think there was really, there I got to spend so much time barefoot. I felt very connected. I had the most beautiful view. I tried different jobs. I really started to open myself up there, like socially and with my confidence. And then obviously you have the islands around them, which are so beautiful. It was a really cool time to live in that place for a couple of months. And then I think about South America. Um, Straight away, well, Santiago de Chile holds a very special place in my heart because it was the first place I arrived to. It's where my friends' family live, and they're my second family. Like it's like a home for me there. And then I also feel that in Buenos Aires, so many of my good friends are from Federal Capital. Um, and it's just, I love Buenos Aires as well. I think it's such a beautiful city. You can always do something, be like you were talking about before. You can be anyone you want to be there.
Hmm.
Then I also think about Ushuaia, El Fin del Mundo, the end of the world. And going to that place was really, wow, this is like this is the end of the continent, the end of the. It's crazy to be there. When I was
Hmm.
there, it was the middle of summer and it was 12 degrees. I did a hike and up the hill it was snowing, and to have that experience was so cool. I think La Patagonia, all parts of La Patagonia are really so beautiful. Um, so if I have to choose one, or
Hmm. But I think you giving besides not choosing one, you giving the right explanation to each of the places you picking.
yeah,
So it's still maybe it is difficult to pick just only one, but I like it. I like it what you said about Amsterdam. That first taste of that life.
yeah. I think
The beginning.
I think that's something that all of those places have in common, really. Like they were all first experiences. I mean, everything's a first experience. You can make anything a first experience if you describe it in the right way. Um,
Hmm.
and I think they all it's really hard to choose like one place in the world because it depends what for. You can say one place in the world, but does that apply to your one place that you would want to live, or the one place that you would always want to go back and visit? For those reasons, I think it's a very complicated question.
Hmm.
I think if we're just choosing just one place, maybe the most beautiful place that I've been, I think I would probably have to choose Ushuaia, El Fin del Mundo. Really being there, when I got there, I went to my hostel and started talking with people straight away. And those next couple of days, we went on hikes together. And I hadn't really done so much trekking.
Hmm.
I was so glad to have met them. And like I say, going and doing those hikes in when it was snowing in the middle of summer was so crazy. And just knowing where I was so isolated. It was just so beautiful. Just I don't know, if it felt like a really magical place, and I would love to go back. Maybe even in winter. But one day I would love to go to Antarctica. So
Antarctica.
yeah,
That's the next step from the end of the world.
yeah, to the real end of the world.
Getting one step into that continent
Yeah.
must be amazing. So okay, so we got that one, and so the second question I have for you is, what would you say in your own language, a phrase, a phrase that maybe represents you, or a phrase that you like, some sort of a message, or what would you say in your language, just to share to everyone that is listening? Some phrase that is fulfilling, or or it works for you in any way.
You know, I've thought of this, and I have an answer in Spanish,
Okay, okay.
My answer in Spanish is somos hijos de la rosa de los vientos, which means we are children of the compass, or we are citizens of the world. Is what the it's from a song, La Rosa de los Vientos, and I think it's a really beautiful thing because I feel very connected with that sentiment. That I believe in a world without borders. I don't believe
Hmm.
that we should be able to live or not live somewhere just because of where we were born. It's a
Hmm.
crazy thing to me. Doesn't make any sense. If I had to choose something in English,
What would it be?
it's a good question.
Hmm. But you can take that one.
No, but when I said
That's-
it to you, I told you you had to come up with something in Spanish. So it's only fair that I come up with something in English too.
Mm-hmm. It's difficult, isn't it? When you
Yeah.
think about it, because when I got that when I got that question, you know, I don't use like mottos or phrases actually. But then again, if you think about songs or poems, there's plenty of things there.
I think something that I truly believe, that I well and truly believe, is that like everything's meant to be, you know?
Everything's meant to be.
I have a very I have a very deterministic outlook on life. I do believe that everything I feel that I know we talked about this a little bit in last episode with you, and I feel the opposite to you. I feel like everything is meant to be. Everything's meant to happen the way it's meant to happen. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I think we should live our lives as if we have the choice. I don't think that we can spend so much time thinking and everything was always going to happen that way. But I do feel like that's the reality. I do feel like maybe they could all just be big coincidences, but I feel like everything was meant to happen for a reason, and I feel like we're put in each other's paths for those reasons, whether that be there's the other message, like people come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
whether that just be a moment or a little while or your whole lives, you know we don't know how that person is going to appear and who that person is going to be for us, but
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they're going to be there for one of those three lengths of
Yeah. It's nice. I like it. I like the concept. It's meant to be,
time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like it. I like it. It's a nice expression. It's a nice phrase. Yeah.
Not that you believe in it.
For me, I think that like my way of life is what we said before in the other episode is like you create your own way. Like that's my attitude at least, or
Yeah.
maybe my personality. But at the same time, I like the phrase. It's meant to be, and I live with it as well. Like
Hmm.
for me, I like to plan and being control, not controlling, but yeah, anticipate, planning, all these things beforehand. I like to do them,
Hmm.
but at the same time, they're of course, they're bigger things than you,
Yeah.
and those bigger things, or even other people, you can't plan or organize how a friendship is going to be, how a relationship is going to be. So you see, in all those things that are unreachable for you to make them happen the way you want them to happen, I like to put the phrase there. It's meant to be, with
Hmm.
people, with places, with options. That they just whatever life comes to you, whatever answer comes to you, those things you can't control them. You can like they come the way they come. So yeah, I can take it with that phrase. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's meant to be. That's good. And then the last thing is, what would you ask to the next person in this podcast for the next episode? What would you ask to that person?
Okay. Well, I thought about this, and I because I get to direct the podcast, I point it in whichever direction I want.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, I like to ask people more serious questions about their lives and stuff and their
Mm-hmm.
stories. So I want to use this question to ask something a bit more lighthearted, and that would be, what are their first three steps? What are the first three things that they're gonna do in a zombie apocalypse?
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good, good, good. That's
Um,
a yeah, a fun, interesting question.
yeah,
That'd be nice to see the answer for the next guest
yeah, indeed, indeed.
in that regards. We have a bit of if the next guest have watched Walking Dead, maybe he will have a few answers
Walking Dead.
prepared. The Walking Dead. I
We
always say it wrong.
need Breaking Bad and Walking Dead.
I always say it wrong. Yes. Oh, alrighty, Ben.
Well,
It
Santi,
was a great talk. Thank you for your time. Thank you for all your your attention and all the conversation and taking the time to describing all your experiences and your time and all the knowledge that came along with your adventures. So yeah, thanks for sharing, and thanks for also giving me the place, like to you know give it the way around, and instead of like me telling the story, me asking you about your story.
mhm.
So thank you for that as well.
No, I really appreciate you coming back for episode 5 here. It's been fun to tell a little bit of my story. Maybe I've told some things that people didn't know. Maybe they'll enjoy the story. I hope so. But yeah, it's been fun, and I'm glad. I know I missed last week, so I'm glad to be back on it now. And again, I really appreciate your time. And my friend here celebrated his 32nd birthday this week, so a big feliz cumpleaños a Santiago. And
Thank
and yeah, thank you
you
for
very
everything,
much.
man.
Thank you, and we'll see. Well, people definitely will see you again on the next episode. I'll be listening.
Yes,
But
perfect.
yes,
And
thank
I
you so
hope
much.
to see you again at some point on this, be it in a couple of months or when we both have the time again.
Anytime, I would always be, yes, happy to come back and participate in any way.
Thank you very much.
Good then. All right. Goodbye to everyone. Thanks for listening. And yes, hope you all enjoyed this episode. And just thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, everyone. Like, follow, subscribe, comment, share, everything.
Bye bye.
Bye.